My name is Liz Bañuelos Castro. I'm the Internship and Diversity Programs Advisor here at the USC Career Center. In addition to myself, I have Giselle Jose and Lauren Upkenorth also joining me from the Internship Engagement Team. They will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any questions as the panel goes on, please submit them in the Q&A. And as a reminder, we do have a lot of events and workshops happening during Career Fest, so you can check them out on our website or on ConnectSC. And with that, we will get started with our media and entertainment panel. And there are amazing panelists here today. So if I could have each of you introduce yourselves and tell us about your organization. Sharon, if you want to get us started.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Shireen Laoras-Salamni. I'm the founder of Playworks and Whiz Girls Academy. Those are both startups in the ed tech and interactive media and gaming space. But I'm also working on 2 TV projects now, so I'm excited to be here.
I can go next. My name is Daisy Stahl, and I'm Executive Vice President of California Bank and Trust, and I'm also a board member of Female Executives in Media and Entertainment. What I do within the realm of entertainment is we provide financing and banking services to support the content creator community, as well as the entertainment industry, including music and also post-production houses and other businesses that support content creation.
Hi, I'm Emma. I am the Education and Special Programs Manager at New Filmmakers Los Angeles. And we're a nonprofit that has the goal of showcasing supporting, educating emerging filmmakers. So we have a monthly film festival where we showcase a different group of underrepresented voices in film every month. We also do some like grant programs and workshops, and we also have a high school mentorship program. So we're doing a lot of work within kind of like uplifting the voices of emerging filmmakers.
Thank you. And I love to see that we have these different perspectives from media and entertainment here today. Now, in learning more about your industry, can you each tell us about the challenges and benefits to working in your industry? Daisy, if you wanted to get us started.
Sure. So I would like to start by saying, you know, I've been in entertainment and finance and kind of this commingled role in banking and credit and the like for about 30 years. And one of the challenges, which I also find is very exciting for somebody like me, is how rapidly our industry evolves. And it's really, you know, when you think about the consumer perspective, the rapid changes in how consumers, you know, how individuals consume content. So back in the 90s, all the way from, you know, VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to shortening, you know, and collapsing what we call windows and how people move from theaters to other forms of, you know, how they consume content, and where we are today with streaming. I mean, I think from the filmmaker's perspective and distributor's perspective, that can be very challenging, but it's also always evolving. So it keeps those of us in the finance world, you know, we really have to stay up to date and in front of what the next evolution of viewing and consumption will look like.
I'll jump in and totally agree with that. I think that it's both a challenge and a benefit. That I feel like the film and media industry is definitely constantly rapidly changing. So you have like mergers happening between organizations and companies. You have like the streaming happening, and that happened very fast, and now it's changing significantly. And there's always new jobs and new kinds of jobs going on and popping up in the industry. Yeah, so it's definitely, it's a challenge, but it's also a benefit because there's definitely like new opportunities constantly happening.
I definitely want to agree with that, but I also want to add that I found when I was inspired by media, so I wanted to be like Tom Hanks in the movie Big when I was a little kid. And I did that. I used to work at Mattel and Bratz, and then I worked on Bratz as well, and I worked on an animated series and did all the things. And I found that Gina Davis came out with her Gender and Media Institute, and she was talking about how there's not enough women in STEM and tech and now in business and all the things. So I think those are all challenges, but then there's opportunities to fill the spaces, and that's what we're doing. So I think there's always challenges and opportunities go hand in hand, and especially now that media is changing. Like I grew up watching PBS and like Wonder Woman and like Pippi Longstocking, and those things were awesome, but they don't really exist as much anymore. So it's interesting to bring them back in a different way. So there's always opportunities in the space.
Thank you each for sharing. I always love to learn how you evolve with the way things change. And while sometimes it can be challenging, you can also still bring new ideas and really learn from the new students in the field, right? Now, in learning more about your industry, what advice would you offer to students interested in a career in your industry? Emma, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, sure. I would say to just like meet as many people as you can. It's definitely beneficial. And kind of along that line, if you get like your first job or your first internship out of college, don't necessarily feel like that has to be exactly what you want. Like maybe you get a job at like an agency and you don't really want to do that. But through that, you're gonna meet people and you're gonna learn more about like what you like and what you don't like, even if you don't necessarily want to do exactly that. So I feel like that's definitely good advice too. Don't feel like your first job has to be exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life.
I would have to agree with Emma, absolutely. And, one of the things that I would like to add is, in entertainment finance, that's so broad, right? People don't really know what that means. And, one of the things that could benefit a student is to reach out and do informational interviews. What that means is you're not actually, interviewing for a job specifically, but you are seeking, a meeting with somebody to ask, explain to me, what exactly do you do? How did you get there? What was your path? And so that's part of networking, and it's part of, gathering information so that you can understand, that there's so many jobs. So for example, in entertainment finance, I've worked for a bank. I've also worked for a major studio. And then you drill down into the kinds of jobs. There's production finance, there's banking, there's a plethora. And until you actually talk to people who are performing those jobs or have performed those jobs, it's like a needle in the haystack. You don't really know because there's so much out there. So I highly suggest informational interviews.
Yeah, I want to add to that too. I think Emma and Daisy both hit it on the nail on the head. Networking is huge. And that's actually, I got my job at Mattel through an informational interview. I called my boss and asked him for coffee. He said he didn't have time, but he said, come to my office. And the first day after I asked my questions about his job, because I was really, like I said, obsessed wanting to be like Tom Hanks, the movie Big, he was like, okay, so this is what we're doing. And I said, okay, I would love to get a job here. And he said, well, it's not the time. We don't have any opportunities right now, but I kept in touch with him for 9 months. And then he finally created a position. So I think it's really, really important to know, like, if you want to work for a specific production company or for like a network or whatever that is, there's so many opportunities. So networking is huge, but also meeting people and reaching out. So there's so many opportunities to reach out to people. There's Twitter, you can Google them. At the time, I was just going to the library and I didn't have opportunities like we do now. So I think it's really important to do the networking, and you never know who you're going to meet where and what that could lead to. Like I met someone that was a manager back like 10 years ago, but now he's like the head of like a big partner at a big agency. So you never know what's going to happen and where the trajectories lead, but I think you should definitely keep in touch.
That's really great advice. Thank you, everyone. And I really love that the note you said, Emma, about you don't have to work at the big name companies right off the bat. It's okay to work at a smaller studio where you can still get that great experience, either in an internship or as a first job. And yes, Daisy, we say all the time, the informational interviews are amazing. It's a good way to connect with people and to really get to know if the industry is for you and really start to make those professional contacts. Now, in learning more about your internships, what qualities do you seek in ideal interns? And what can a student do to stand out for the right reasons in their applications? Sharon, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah, I look for someone that's really passionate about what they want to do. And we talk about like tailoring the internship to their passion and their drive and what they want to accomplish out of it. Because there's so many opportunities now. And since we have like streaming and like all these different ways of doing things like Twitch, like there's so many different ways of doing media now that it's really up to them. But I look for like passion and drive and really what they want to do, what their end goal is.
Yeah, I'm not the one who hires our interns, but the interns that we look for, I work with a lot of our interns, and we're looking for people who are like interested in learning because we're a nonprofit and we kind of do a bunch of different things with emerging filmmakers. So it's not, we don't use necessarily like film skills, but we want to find people who are interested in like learning quickly and are open to learning about like different parts of the industry that maybe they hadn't heard about in school. And then also people who are detail oriented. I find that our best interns are paying attention to the small details, people who ask questions, and are pretty self-directed. So we'll give you like a project and then we'll trust that you are able to finish it. We're not going to be like checking in on you every day, or like every hour. We want you to be able to kind of do things on your own.
Yeah, I would agree with the other panelists. What I would say is from my perspective, is specific to entertainment finance. So part of that is the finance aspect of it. So, we do look for candidates that have a foundational knowledge of finance concepts. That could be corporate finance, that could be accounting. We're also looking for somebody that has a passion for entertainment, right? Not just that, because I do come across candidates that it just sounds sexy and cool, when it's combined with finance. So sometimes people major in finance and they say, okay, well, entertainment sounds cool. Well, you need to understand, what is the entertainment industry? Like show some passion that you've researched, that you're interested in, why you're interested, and that it's an authentic reason. Just scratching below the surface, the authenticity is really important. And I also think, initiative and drive, to demonstrate that somehow, what you may have done in school, any previous kind of experiences, whether it's on a project or whether it's work experience, because I do understand, if you're applying for your first internship, you may not have, the work experience with another internship, but showing some kind of drive and initiative or leadership in some kind of project, even if it's academic.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, definitely your passion shows in your written materials, in your interviews. It's very important that you are excited to be working in your organizations, right? Now, you all touched on this a little bit already about networking, but to dive a little bit deeper, we know that networking is a huge part of the internship search. Do you have any tips or advice for our students who maybe have never networked before? Emma, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. I would say that networking is a huge part of getting your foot in the door, meeting people who you may not necessarily have met just over like email or something. I would say to reach out to people on LinkedIn. That's like a really good resource. You can even just like search for people who went to USC also and who are working in a specific type of job, like type in USC and then like a specific job that you're looking for. And there are people who will be working in that exact role who went to your school. And you can just message them, or you can connect with them and then message them about just getting coffee, like Daisy said, just having like an informational interview. Don't reach out to people saying like, can you get me a job? Like reach out to them because you want to learn. And you're just like showing them what you're passionate about. And I think that will really like help you meet people in a more natural way than just like asking people for things. Like you're not asking people for things, you just want to learn more. I think that's really helpful.
One of the things that I would like to add and expand on is, this notion of networking for internships. Networking is something that's a critical aspect to any person's career for the entirety of their career. And I want, students to understand that it's so important. I'm already an executive level, but we, again, I had mentioned in the introduction, I'm on the board of a networking group. It's a nonprofit networking group called Female Executives in Media and Entertainment. Because even when you're, at the C-suite level, like CFOs, chief creative officers, CEOs, it's so important to network for ideas, to understand what's happening in the industry. And for those who are early in their careers, in college or graduating from college, if you start that foundation early, and then you'll find a cohort of other folks that are growing up in the ranks as well. So, you can network with peers, with potential mentors, with potential employers, and informational interviews. Better information will help you throughout your career. And it's just so important and critical in our business to develop relationships, because we are from my perspective, we are a relationship business.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. But I think there's also groups on campus where you can join. I mean, there's like the film group, there's the animation group. I know there's women in animation when you come out, like there's so many different groups, and then there's meetups, and then there's events, and there's also industry groups that you can join. Because like I'm part of the TV Academy in Interactive, but I know there's a student group they have. There's like so many different groups that they have. So I'm sure you can Google things, and if you don't find one, start your own. I think it's important to show your leadership skills. And also when you're networking, say, I started this group because I didn't find one. There's so many different things you could do, but there's so many opportunities now. Like I said, when I was starting in networking, I was doing everything at the library because I was just connecting the dots because there was no Google and all those things. But now there's so many easier opportunities literally at your fingertips.
Yes, Sharon, all really good advice. And don't be afraid to cold call someone on Trojan Network or LinkedIn. If there is a company you really want to work for or a role you're really interested in, people love to talk about themselves, so they will happily talk about their experience. And I really appreciate all of your tips, Emma, Daisy, and Sharon. And Sharon, that was a very good segue into our next question. A mix of hard and soft skills are needed in every industry. What are the hard and soft skills that students should work on to thrive in your industry? Sharon, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think it's important because like when you start out in entertainment from different perspectives, like there's always like the PA that starts out, there's so many different ways, assistants, like all the things, but I think it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And I know like personally a few people that were assistants that now are heads of networks. You just go through the motions, right? You have to go up the ladder. So I think it's an opportunity to learn, and anytime you get an opportunity to learn, it's a great thing. So I wouldn't be focused on, oh, I'm just here right now. Just focus on like what your end goal is, what you want in your career, and then show off what your strong skills are and strong skill sets to get there, because I think that's the most important thing.
Emma, do you want to follow, or Daisy?
Yeah, sure. I would say also, I would definitely also second the like willingness to learn. I think that's really essential. And kind of like a critical thinking perspective as well. I always feel like in college, you are learning how to think, and you're learning how to think critically. And that's like really important in any job, but also especially in like the media and entertainment industry. I feel like just being able to learn and then like take feedback and like learn from that is really essential. And then I guess I also said, but like attention to detail. We do have a lot of different internships at my organization. So we have like people who are interns who are working at our events. And that's like a lot of people skills where you're going to learn how to talk to people, how to network with people. And then we also have probably more like computer-based internship roles where you're going to be working on like Excel sheets and doing a lot of more like detail-oriented work. And I feel like doing both of those things is also really important for this industry, because you're probably not going to be just talking to people. You're also going to be doing a lot of like computer work as well, and like emails is also really essential. Yeah.
So again, specific to entertainment finance, if I can kind of characterize, what this all encompasses. So, I work for a bank. I previously worked at a major studio. But, productions need to track the money, right? How much you're going to spend, how much you actually spend. Are you on budget? Are you off budget? So, if you think about like production accounting, or even, what kind of, finance and accounting is required in a major studio, or finance and accounting required for somebody like me, that I'm trying to provide capital to content producers. The hard skill is very technical. Again, it goes back to a foundation in accounting and finance. So you have to, have something to the effect of maybe, intermediate accounting and or corporate finance class. It also requires, technical like Excel skills. So if you can acquire and practice those skills, during class or during a corporate finance class, that's very helpful. We also require a lot of research. So usually I have a team of people that are focused on researching industry trends, companies and companies' performance, streamers. And so, I have folks on my team that are monitoring, how the streamers are all performing, and their subscriber growth or their subscriber declines, what the major studios are doing, how films are performing, both indie and major studios, who are the distributors. It requires a lot of research because we are a global business, and we do transactions with international partners. So a lot of finance and research. And then the soft skills really is about, working in a professional environment, right? Managing projects, managing your deadlines, working as part of a group, because we do have a deal team approach, which is like a project approach where everybody is, has their piece, and the project can't progress unless certain pieces are done. And if you have a piece of that, you have a team that's relying on you. So that requires collaboration, interpersonal skills, and managing deadlines.
Thank you each for sharing. I know that organizational skills can really be important for every industry, and just refining some of those soft skills. And even if you don't have the hard skills, you can still learn them through LinkedIn Learning, Google. There are so many places where you can continue to learn. And actually, that's a pretty good segue into one of our audience questions. Do you all feel that there is a certain major that you need to work in media and entertainment? Daisy, do you want to start us off?
Well, accounting or finance, or, a minor in either one of those. So, if you're majoring in some other kind of, liberal arts degree, or, film, having that kind of, minor in either of those shows that you will have taken some curriculum that will give you those very technical finance skills.
I'm going to go ahead and say no. I don't think that there's a specific major or minor that you need to work in the film industry. I've seen people who have worked in literally everything, or people who have majored in literally everything, work in my industry. And I feel like I went to a liberal arts college. I feel like learning about critical thinking and like problem solving in any capacity is super important for the film and media industry. So I don't think you should feel like you're limited by a specific major to go into a specific part of the entertainment industry. I really believe that you can major in anything as long as you are like learning and you're showing that you're passionate about learning, because I think that you're not going to know everything when you're going into a job in the industry. You're going to be learning as you go. So I think that just going to college and learning how to learn is the most important thing for me.
I agree with that, but I think it's also specific to where, like, what you want to do. So it goes back to, like, if you want to be in animation, there's great animation programs, right? USC has a really good one. If you want to do interactive media and gaming, USC has another good one. Like, it really depends on what you want to do and what your passion is. Then again, like, I majored in child psychology and consumer and family studies, and I've been in the kids space all my life, but then I'm doing different projects. So it really depends on a little bit of what you want to do, but also like what your passion is. And then if you want to learn on your own on top of it, like, you can do anything.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, you can definitely have any major and of course acquire those skills, but if you're going into something more technical, like Daisy said, maybe you can also major in accounting or finance. Now, in learning more about the internships again, what kind of projects do you have your interns work on?
I can start. So, I don't fully expect, an intern to know banking, right? Or to have like all of the accounting and finance skills by the time they're a sophomore or junior, right, rising senior. So typically the tasks that we do is, or that we have the intern do is, they do a lot of research. And, again, what I started out with in terms of how the industry is rapidly evolving, there are a lot of industry reports, articles, and to kind of try and piece all of those together to update what we refer to as a white paper. And a white paper is an in-depth analysis of a specific industry. So we have white papers on film and TV, a white paper on music, and I need folks to perform that research so that we can update our white paper on recent trends, as recent as, the most recent 3 to 6 months. We also have the interns perform some kind of financial analysis, just kind of as an introductory way to say, okay, this is really what banking is like. Give them a flavor, because obviously they've expressed an interest in finance, and also talk to them about potential other opportunities outside of banking. There's investment banking, there's working for a major studio. So we try and give our interns an overview of different career paths, in addition to what, is a career path inside of banking and entertainment.
We have a lot of different kinds of projects that we have our interns work on. So as I said, we have kind of like several different internship roles. So we have interns that are specifically working on our events. We have some social media roles, programming and outreach. So programming is when you're kind of like choosing the films that are shown at our festival screenings. So you're not specifically going to be like the one choosing it, but you're going to be like watching some of the films and writing about them, which I think is like a really cool skill to learn, analyzing the films and sending your little blurbs to our programming director, and also doing research about films that are shown at other festivals, and that have like gotten a lot of attention. And then maybe you want to bring that to our programming director with some kind of like recommendations for showing at our festivals. And then we also have an industry and development role where you would be working on doing research for executives from the industry that we bring in to meet with our filmmakers every month. And that's also a really important role. And you're kind of like in that role, you're learning really about the entire industry and what different roles mean, and what kind of influence they have over specific parts of the industry as well. And those are all like also kind of interchangeable. So a lot of our interns are also like at our events and meeting people. We also have our program where we bring in high school students to kind of like show them what a set is like. And our interns also work on that, especially ones that are more skilled in like the technical aspects of film. We're having them kind of like show the high school students how to work on a set. And yeah, we also, we're a really small organization. So we also rely on our interns to kind of like also do their own thing. So if they find kind of like a project that they really want to work on. So we had an intern in the past who was like, I want to work on your guys' website and like maybe make some changes. And now we like pay him to run our website. So we really have like a lot of like our interns have a lot of freedom, and we let them kind of make their own goals, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, similar to Emma, I think since we're a small startup, it's really depending on where we have opportunities, but it comes down to like starting with project management, and it's project management from start to finish, like on a game, on the show now, like there's so many different opportunities. But then it starts with being an intern, and like Emma said, like when you get to the next level, you will get hired to run that whatever you worked on. So starts with an internship, but it's not for long, because once you show that you're passionate and you want to be a part of a big project, then you get to take it over.
These all sound like very hands-on experiences in your internships. Thank you all for sharing. I have a quick follow-up for Daisy from the audience. Does a CFA help for working in finance in the entertainment industry?
Well, so I don't have a CFA, but I'm fairly familiar with the requirements of passing the CFA exam. So yes, I would say, you know, it certainly helps because you will have already studied and undergone the rigor of passing a CFA exam.
Thank you, Daisy. And going back to the questions for all of you, we'd had another audience question that asks, for generic internships that are non-specified, for example, associate project manager or contributor, would having a portfolio be beneficial to highlight versatility, or would credentials or experiences, for example, academic projects, be more desirable? Emma, do you want to take the question?
Yeah, I think anything that you put in your application is going to help you and to kind of like show what you're good at and what specific skills you have. So whether that's a portfolio or like a list of projects that you've done and like some more specifics about that, or maybe you have even just like things that you've worked on in school, like essays that you've done, or maybe you've made like a video. I really think that anything that you put in an application is going to help show like exactly what you're like as a candidate, and show like how well-rounded you are and what skills you have.
Sharon? Oh,
Sure, yeah, I agree with that. But when I'm like hiring for games, I'm looking at like what kind of code are they using? Are they using Unity? Are they using Unreal? Like there's different things for that specific. But then on the production side, it really, I think, is important to have your resume and a cover letter, but also maybe do a video like explaining who you are, like what you're all about. I think video is important. And then also like any extracurricular activities, like were you part of a gaming program? Like, did you start a gaming club? Like, there's very specific things, because I always look for what is the extra mile that these people have gone through to really show who they are and what their unique selling point is. That's USP, right? So like you're technically a brand and you want to show off why I should hire you versus somebody else. And you got to make it really clear.
and Daisy, did you want to add anything?
No, I think I would agree, you know, with you know, Sharon, that, you know, the aspect of a resume and a cover letter, like typically, you know, for applications for me. I wouldn't normally get, video. But what Sharon pointed out is, what has a student done above and beyond that shows leadership and initiative, right? And this concept that I thought was so important that you said, Sharon, was the branding, right? It's not like social media branding, but it's who are you? What makes you unique, and demonstrating that to potential employers. What is your brand? Are you a creator? Are you a finance whiz that just happens to have passion for movies and you want to combine the both? Like, to make that clear in whatever your communications are, an email, cover letter, resume, is really important, and that's how you stand out. In addition, networking. If you can network with somebody that can make an introduction, that also helps amplify you as a candidate, both your resume, cover letter, and or video, plus an soft introduction from somebody.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All great advice. And I love how you put that, Sharon, about making your own personal brand and finding ways to stand out that are different from what people usually put on their resume, like creating video, especially in this more creative industry. Now, in thinking still about the industry, what are some professional associations that you all recommend to college students to connect with in order to get involved or start to network with maybe influential people in the field? Sharon, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Like I mentioned before, the TV Academy has a student membership, which is awesome. They have a lot of different things. There's like women in animation. I think it really depends on what you want to do. There's women in gaming. It depends on what industry you want to focus on. Is it film? I know there's women in film. Like, I'm sure there's different groups for different like production and what have you. But and I think they all have student like starting points. And then you can, as you grow along, you can, evolve with them.
Yeah, I second all of that, definitely. I also think Women in Film is a really great organization. And I would also say to volunteer or go to film festivals. It doesn't have to be ours, but like any local film festivals are, especially if you want to work in like film or TV. I think that film festivals are really, really great places to meet people, not necessarily like, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be meeting like really big executives or anything. If you're just meeting people who are also really interested in film and you're like sharing ideas, or if you're meeting people who are working at film festivals, that's also really great. People who are like screening or programming for film festivals, or just meeting anybody at festivals, because that's a place where people like you are going to be going, and you want to meet people who are kind of like in the same boat as you. I think that is really important as well. Yeah.
So it's an interesting question for me, because there aren't really organizations that are specifically catered to entertainment finance. And the reason why that is because within finance and banking, there aren't that many of us that know how to do it. It's very niche in the finance and banking industry. So, part of my group is called Entertainment Finance, and we're considered a specialized industry group within banking. So what I would suggest is, what our two other panelists recommended was if you can join an industry-related organization. But there are also finance organizations, business or banking organizations for finance and business students. But that's where, I have one leg in finance and the other leg, I'm kind of straddling both industries. And the combination of the two is actually quite unique. And to me, what makes finance interesting. So I would say probably a combination of the both, but you definitely have to have, your arms around what is happening in the industry through those organizations. So those would be, very helpful, an entertainment and film organization.
Thank you. And we have a few follow-up for a few of you. Emma, I think this is for you. What experience would you be looking for on a resume if you were looking for a production assistant?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily hire production assistants like PA jobs, but I think that a lot of PA jobs are looking for those like technical skills. And then I think they're also looking for a lot of like passionate candidates. So candidates have worked on a lot of films in school, or maybe if you haven't worked on any films in school, which I think is totally fine, that you have at least like shown some sort of like passion for making films, even if you hadn't worked on anything, or maybe in your cover letter, you're showing a lot of like drive and passion for working on like at that particular studio or on like a set, and you want to get hands-on experience. A lot of people work at PA jobs and like work their way up in the studio, and I think that PA jobs are really a really great way to also like learn a lot of technical skills.
Thank you, Emma. And a follow-up for Sharon. Sharon, is the student membership in the TV Academy attached to its internships? I've never seen a TV Academy membership path for students in general. If there is such a path, can you specify? This is the student question.
Got it. Yeah, I know there's a student membership. I don't know the path. And I know there's a foundation that does the internships and all the things. And I know they've expanded a lot of those. I don't know any of that stuff because I'm not involved. I know from like my interactive media, which just turned into, they just call it emerging media now, happening there because I was on the board there for a while. So I think you should call them and ask, or Google. I'm sure they'll answer your questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Now, in shifting back to questions for the whole panel and learning more about your industry, what do you each like best about your job and your industry? Emma, do you want to start?
Yeah, I really like that you get to meet new people. I feel like I'm like actually a pretty introverted person, but I learned a lot of like communication skills and networking skills from working in this industry. And I work with and talk to executives in the industry all the time, like every day now. And I feel like something that's also important to say is that like even you don't have to be like a super extroverted person to work in the film industry. I feel like a lot of people think that that's true, but like if you're just going to a networking event, like maybe bring a friend and like have the goal of like talking to 3 people that you see there. And yeah, that's what I like about my job, is like you get to actually talk to people, and it's a lot less scary than you think, I would say. I also really like that I get to work with people who are really passionate about film and all kinds of media, people who are really creative. Like I'm not a super creative person. I don't make movies myself, but I like that at my job, I'm like really uplifting and highlighting the voices of people who I think are really creative and people who come from underrepresented backgrounds and who might not necessarily get the chance for people to see their films otherwise. So yeah, that's what I love about my job, is that I get to connect people who really are so happy that people are watching their films. I get to connect them to executives and people who also they're looking for people who are good voices, and they love to be connected to these voices. So I'm really like matchmaking, and I love doing that.
Okay, so I'll take a slightly different spin. So because I'm not a filmmaker, we support filmmakers. You know, there are 2 things that I love, is that I love supporting filmmakers monetize their content, right? So there's the creative aspect of it. But when you're creating this intellectual property, there's a value to that when you bring it to share with others. And, you know, whether it's documentaries or whether it's scripted content, you know, the finance aspect of it is the engine that helps keep content creation on, you know, it's kind of like the behind the scenes aspect of it. There's always got to be some kind of, you know, funding or monetization. So I get a lot of questions from, you know, filmmakers that are starting out, and they ask me the question, how do I get the funding for my movie? right? And it depends on the budget, but going through that process, and certain folks I can help, certain others I can't, because they're very distinct structures that tend to be complex. How do you get your movie made? But helping people, either for me to finance it or for me to give people advice early on in their careers, how to get that funding. And then the other aspect of it that I really enjoy is the fact that our business is global in nature, right? So I have just met so many people, around the world, filmmakers, distributors, networks, various platforms, and just understanding, content is different in every region. It's consumed differently. The kind of content that succeeds is different. So that global aspect to me has always been, very exciting.
Yeah, I gotta agree with both, but I think the creative aspect and getting to create something from scratch is really big, and also making a big social impact, making a difference in the lives of the consumer, the person that watches whatever you do and plays with whatever you do. So I think it's important to have that creativity because you're using your imagination, and that's a big, huge part of it.
Thank you each. I love hearing these different perspectives about what different ways that you make this impact in your jobs and your roles. And it really goes to show how you can work in media and entertainment in these different ways and truly be passionate and love everything you're doing. Now, in thinking back to, I think you've all touched on this throughout the panel about what sort of skills you look for in students, but in thinking about maybe some do's and don'ts of your interns, can you speak more to some of the things that you recommend for students to do in their internships and some that you recommend not to? Sharon, do you maybe want to start us off?
So you said, what do we recommend for doing in the internships?
Do's and don'ts.
I think showing leadership skills are really big, and also showing passion again and drive, because like I mentioned, when I got my job originally at Mattel, it was me starting with an informational interview, and at the end I asked him for a job, but he said no. But after 9 months I kept in touch, I sent letters, I went to the toy fair on my own, I did everything I could, where he finally created a job because he was like, this girl really is super passionate. And I told him the first day, I said, I want to be like Tom Hanks, the movie Big. That's my dream job. So I think if you show that grit and passion, that's huge. And no one can say no to that. And also the part of learning about his job, because people love to talk about themselves, as Emma mentioned earlier. And it's like how they got to the path. So it's important to show that you're super passionate about that. And the don'ts, I mean, I think it's like the social media thing, I think has gotten a little bit overboard. So don't divulge too much information. I think there's a fine line of balance, right?
Yeah, jumping off of that, I would agree that there is kind of like some level of discretion in the industry. So if you're like working with people who, especially in my role, like executives who are working on like specific projects, and maybe they're talking to you about it, maybe don't like post that all over social media. Like it's not like good manners. You just don't want to do that, and it's like gonna probably like ruin your connection to that. So yeah, don't go like talking about like everything that you are doing at your internship. And they'll probably, if you're working at a studio, you might have to like sign something about that, but just don't go like gossiping about everything to everybody. And then kind of going more specifically to like interning at our organization, as I've said before, it's like a really like you get out of it what you put into it. And it's probably the same for a lot of internships, but if you're like, we've had interns who will just kind of like fall off and stop talking to our internship coordinator like by the end of the semester, and they'll just kind of like stop doing their projects. So at that point they're like not getting what they put into it. They're not getting anything out of it because they're not putting anything into it. So you really want to like not only show what you want to get out of it, but like really put in the work and like show what specifically you want to be doing, and then like do the work, because it's pretty self-directed. And I think that like a lot of jobs after internships are like that too. So you want to be demonstrating that you can do that kind of work yourself.
For our internships, I would say the do's are to take initiative. So if you get through a task quickly, please, do ask, for additional work. Maybe, we have to gauge whether or not the task was too easy, if it was too challenging, to take initiative, and also to ask for help. If there's something that is very technical and you don't know and you don't understand, I'd rather have somebody ask for help and get a little bit of guidance than take on the project and from start to finish and it's completely wrong. Right? That's not what we're asking interns to do, to manage all by themselves. So there's got to be a balance, which leads to the don't. The balance is taking the initiative, asking for help as needed, but also not expecting that this is a classroom that we're going to lay everything out for you and teach you, everything A to Z, right? So finding that balance, to ask for help, learn, make some mistakes, keep asking for help, and taking the initiative to take something all the way through to the end of the task. What I would also say about, the comments about social media and talking about things. So when you work for a financial institution, everything that we do is confidential. So we work with a lot of very famous clients that we don't ever discuss. So, working in banking, everything is under an NDA. We don't discuss it outside the office. We don't take materials outside of the office. Even if after you leave the institution, you don't go saying, I worked with such and such company and, Daisy took me on site and we saw so-and-so. We don't do that. Our clients expect confidentiality and discretion.
Thank you, each of you. And we do have a few follow-ups. Sharon, one quick one for you is, you mentioned women in film and the TV Academy. Are there any other organizations you recommend joining?
Well, again, it depends on what do you want to focus on. I think I mentioned Women in Gaming, and then there's IGDA, which is International Game Development Association. There's like so many different groups. It really depends on what you want to do. Just, you can Google it, or even start with like, your school. Like there's gaming under the film school. There's so many different groups at USC. So I would start there.
Thank you. And then I'm going to ask one more general question to each of you before we ask a few more specific questions. What is one takeaway that you feel our students should have after this panel about your industry or about your internships? Daisy, do you want to start us off?
One takeaway, I would say to network and explore your career options. Spend the time looking and researching.
Yeah, I want to second that. I think it's super important to network. And there's so many different groups of networking, and even like, I think Variety has different events that you can go to, maybe volunteer at, whatever, like find places where you can volunteer, because Emma mentioned that as well. And the networking part is huge, because today you might all be interns, but tomorrow you can be running studios or whatever, like down the line. So I think the networking part is huge, and it's not just for right now, it's for the future.
Yeah, I also want to second that. I think that networking and putting yourself out there in whatever way you can is really important. So whether that's like going to events, volunteering at places, joining organizations, or just talking to like your fellow classmates, like those people are also going to be like the next executives. So you want to like network with the people that you go to school with, because they're going to be powerful just like you in the future. And I also think that if you kind of like what I said at the beginning, I feel like you can spend a lot of time like thinking about what you want to do, and then you're getting kind of like paralyzed, like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. So I'm not going to apply for like this specific job because it's not maybe exactly what I want to do. I think that just getting like any experience, whether it's kind of like a little bit related to what you want to do, and then maybe you learn that that's actually what you really love to do. And also don't be afraid to like cross careers, I guess. So like I know a lot of people who are in specific careers and then like they do an internship and then they get their first job there, and a couple of years later they're like, I actually don't like this. I'm going to do this other thing. So that's like totally possible. Don't feel like you're like locked into something like when you graduate.
Thank you each for your great advice to our students. And then we have two last follow-up questions, one for you, Daisy, and one for you, Sharon. Sharon, we had a student ask for breaking into the toy industry. Are there any organizations that you recommend joining, skill sets that are coming in demand right now? And the student said that they are non-technical and non-creative, so they're curious about what opportunities exist in the niche field.
Well, it goes back to what your passion is. There's women in toys, and now, I mean, when I was at Mattel, it was a long time ago. It was like 2000 to 2003, and then I was at MGA till 2008. So the industry has dramatically changed. Like I know they're doing a Barbie movie now at Mattel. At the time when I was at Mattel, they weren't doing anything like that. So I think it's advanced a lot. So it really depends on what you want to do. But I would say now Google, toys and industry groups and see what comes up, because I haven't been as involved as I used to be, because now I'm in, gaming and interactive and TV as well. So, and like what Emma said, like I started super passionate about toys and that's what I thought I was going to do forever. But now like I've evolved into something else. So you never know where you're going to land and where you're going to go, but just follow, the process. And in terms of like non-technical, I think it doesn't matter. It just depends on what your passion is. Like, what do you want to do in the toy business? I think you should figure that out.
Great advice, Sharon. Thank you. Always keep an open mind, right? And follow your passions. And lastly, Daisy, we have a student asking, they have a degree in finance and they're studying an MS program relating to media. Does that fit the requirements to enter entertainment finance industry? And do you have suggestions for international students who want to seek internships in your industry?
Well, so for the first question, yes, a degree in finance and some kind of media minor definitely is a plus. It also boils down to, what else you have on your resume, but it's definitely a great start. And then the second question was regarding international. Well, I would say it's the same requirements for international versus US. Now, I don't know about, international students staying over the summer, if there are any special kind of, visa related requirements, or if they can stay based on their student visa. But I would say the same applies to international students.
Thank you, Daisy. Those are all of the questions that I have for you all today. Thank you so much for joining us, Sharon, Daisy, Emma. You've been amazing. You provided a lot of insight into your internships and your industry. Before I bring it to a close, I just want to remind our students that we do have Career Fest still happening. We have a lot of events that either Lauren or Giselle will put in the chat right now. And check them out. We also have the career fair next week. I hope you can all join us next week for our career fair, as well as other Career Fest events. Thank you again, Sharon, Emma, and Daisy, for joining us. You've all been wonderful. And have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.